Okay, let's get started. We can close the door in the back, please. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming to the session. Thank you very much for coming to Build. Let me talk a little bit more about myself, and then I'll talk about the session. So I am a developer like many of you. I have developed more than 40 different apps and games for Windows and Windows Phone. And that's my side job. My real job is working in the store that manages all the apps. The system that publishes the app, the system that actually delivers the apps to users in both Windows and Windows Phone. So it's a large group of people that is in charge of making sure we get the best apps and that the users can actually get your apps, download them, purchase them every day of the year across all over the world. So the idea today is to share with you analysis that our team has done to try to understand what are the best practices and trends in the store that have actually made some apps very, very successful. So I'll share with you first some analysis of the store and some trends on the store, then some general best practices that we found from many of the different apps, and then we'll go into the different topics and drill down into what we've learned from the best of the best apps that are out there in the store, both for Windows and PC and tablet. And at the end, we'll leave some time for questions, of course. So I want to start, first of all, just trying to talk about the whole store. Maybe not everybody has seen this before, but the store here that the users can access in PC, phone, and tablet has more than 400,000 different apps. Some of them are available in one, some of them are available in the other, some of them available in both platforms. And we have more than 400,000 developers developing apps for those platforms. According to IDC, according to our numbers, we've seen more than 91% growth in users. So clearly, the users are seeing value in this store. And we're seeing, therefore, more than 100 million active users. Active user, in this case, is a user that has downloaded an app in the past few months and have used them. So there's a large enough base of users out there that could be accessing, could be using your apps. Also, something quite interesting is that we found that, as you probably know, in many countries, credit cards are not as widely available as in the US, for example. And take an example, I'm from Mexico, and not everybody has a credit card in Mexico. So what we found is a very important thing to do is to enable mobile operator billing in those countries. What it means is if you have a phone, you get an app and you want to buy the app, you don't have to put in your credit card. You can just go in and charge it to Telcel, in this case in Mexico, or to a mobile operator in China that we announced today that we signed a deal with the largest e-mobility probably in the planet. All of those actually, every time we light that up, we see between 2 and 8 times more purchases, either of apps or in-app purchase. So that's a key strategy that we have when we go to countries with low credit card penetration. Also, something very interesting, and it's similar in other of these stores, is in-app purchase has been one of the drivers for revenue growth for developers the past few months. As February, when I ran this data last, more than 50% of all the paid transactions were coming from in-app purchase. So again, just keep that in your mind as we go into the details of the different monetization mechanisms. This is just a high-level overview of where we are in the store today. And to illustrate many of the ideas and best practices in this presentation, I am actually going to be showing a fair number of different applications and games of all different types. Within those, as I was doing some of the analysis, I tried to find out, tell me more about some of these apps. So from all of those apps that you'll see in the presentation today, 4 of those apps belong to 4 different indie developers that have made more than $1 million in the store. There is, I actually chose one of the many that is going to be shown in the advertising section that just on Windows Phone by itself has made $750,000 on ads, just on Windows Phone. There are several there in the presentation that when we compare the revenue they're making per download on Android or iOS, they're making more on our platform. And actually, a game that was released about a month ago, I played it fairly frequently. It's an in-app purchase-based game. It's going to be in the in-app purchase section. That one is making $9,000 a day. So what's interesting is, what are these apps doing that not all the other apps are doing. So we try to drill down a little bit more on what are the tips, techniques that they use. So at a high level, successful apps, of course, have very high quality. They target a broad set of users, that as many of users can and want to use it. And they fall into two major strategies. Either they are the best in one category. So in this case, I chose Rayman, Jungle Run, and Jack of Tools, a game and a tool. And they're some of the best in their category. And they're already known as the best in that type of game. So users flock to that application, they try to download it and purchase it. The other strategy is we've seen several developers that have a portfolio of apps. And that portfolio is very useful because if a user likes that app or likes that game, they clearly will like the next one and the next one that this developer creates. And in this case, Artifex Mundi has a portfolio of games. And you can see even from the icons, they are very similar. They use similar techniques, which also allows them to move very quickly in their development cycle. And I was just informed today, they released their new game today. So if you like Artifex Mundi, well, there's yet another one that you're going to be able to spend your money on. So that's two strategies. The other thing that we've noticed, a very significant trend, is a large percentage of the apps are taking advantage of the tools, platforms, and technologies that are available to help development much faster, to help either creating new apps or porting new apps much faster. So why is this? Because if you already have an app in our platform, you might be using some of this monetization or ad SDKs, or you might be using Unity, which a session previously to here was on Unity. Or you might be using Xamarin if you already have C# code and you want to port your app somewhere else, or Facebook, et cetera. So all of those tools have also enabled more apps and more apps to come to the platform. And of course, if you already have apps using these tools, this is a no-brainer. You should be using them. And we know, we have statistics of how many apps are using each of these tools. And a large portion of the successful apps are using one or many of these tool sets. So now let me pause a little bit, and I'm going to ask you some questions, because there are three primary ways of making money with apps in our store. Either through advertising, through in-app purchase, or selling your app. So let me take a count of hands here. Who are you either has developed or your company has developed an app for mobile phones or tablets? So about 70%. So how many of you, the revenue is based on advertising? So it's about a third. In-app purchase? It's about a third of the ones. And paid? Also a third. So how does that compare with the Windows and the Windows Phone store? Are we do a third, or is it different? Well, I don't think we've ever released these numbers before. If you look at Windows, 29% of the revenue that goes to developers is coming from paid apps. 31% is from in-app purchase, and the rest is for advertising. You compare it to Windows Phone. Windows Phone has been in the market longer, especially with in-app purchase, and you can see that in-app purchase now in Windows Phone is 44% of the total revenue. And the arrows indicate the trends. In-app purchase is the #1 category with highest revenue growth in our stores. And again, that's a trend similar to all the major app stores in the industry. And what's interesting is if I drill down and I found, are apps successful in each of those three models? Well, of course they are. I mean, you see just the bulk of the revenue is divided among those three. So they're fairly successful apps in each of those three categories. And I'm going to give a lot of examples during the presentation. The presentation was going to be available offline, and you can download these apps and games and try them out and see what makes them successful, what makes them tick. But these are very good examples of each of the three revenue mechanisms. So now let's drill down into each one of them. So let's start with in-app purchase. Then we're going to move to paid, and then to advertising. And then we'll talk about other topics here. So in-app purchase, similar to other platforms, we offer consumables, and we offer durables. Durables are items that are purchased once and owned forever. And in this case, I take a battery app, actually a battery app I have installed on my phone. The app tells me when my battery is being consumed very quickly. It has different sound notifications. It has logs. And you are able to actually purchase different paid packages, different durables, And it's been fairly successful because the value that they give to the user is enough that the user wants to buy it. And then they offer different packages. Consumables is the other mechanism where the user purchases, consumes it, purchases it again, like coins. And in this case, Call of Arena has a set of packages of gems that the users use and then reuse and consume more and more. Those are two examples, but what's more interesting is, okay, so let's look at the top applications that are making most money through in-app purchase. And we analyzed the top 10, and all of them are using the same best practices. I'm going to show you those best practices in a real app. So let me switch to 7. Okay, so you see here my Windows Phone 8, and let's look at Hill Climb Racing. Hill Climb Racing, let me actually, another show of hands here. Who has used Hill Climb Racing? Okay, it's about a third of you. Well, this is an example of good practices of in-app purchase. Here you can see that you basically have a vehicle, and you have many more vehicles that you can be using. In this case, I'll choose the Jeep. And then you have many different stages that you can use. And you see some of them are locked, some of them are not. So I'll choose Countryside. And then each vehicle has different ways of upgrading it, either a more powerful engine or more gasoline. So if you start playing it, then you'll see that eventually you get some coins and you earn coins. So clearly, there's a way of making money, of earning the coins during the gameplay. But if you want to advance faster and you don't want to spend that much time to upgrade the vehicles, then you can buy it. And here you can see you can get the coins. And the coins are available in different packages. And you can clearly see what's the package, what's the value of each of them. So there are multiple price points. And you as a user can choose whichever one you think is best, depending on the amount of money that you want to spend. But you clearly see on the screen, what are you going to get with the coins? Why do you want to get the coins? Either to upgrade a vehicle, or to unlock one of the new scenes, or to unlock one of the new vehicles. So, and you're shown here on the screen, what are you going to get? So you want to, actually I played it quite a lot, and then recently the new update had a police car that I hadn't seen before. I want the police car. So it is showing the user like a window what they're going to be able to get. And that gets the user to think about, continue to play even more and more to be able to get to that in a purchase. So what did you see here as a prime example that all the top 10 apps that are making most revenue on in-app purchase have? All of them are free. All of them have in-app purchase embedded into the design of the app. All of them, they offer different price points, show very clear explanation and an image of what you're going to get, and still allow the user to play without it. They don't force the user. The user doesn't feel threatened that you have to buy it to be able to play. But still are intelligent enough to generate that desire to want to buy more. And then you're able to unlock new features. I'm not saying this is easy, but this is what these games have been able to achieve, and that I think is something you should explore if in-app purchase is something that your game is based on. So now let's look at another mechanism. So first is in-app purchase, the other one is paid. That's the other way that users can give you some revenue from purchases. And we found out that the vast majority of the successful paid apps use trial. Trial is not available in other platforms, and is the capability of offering the app for free and then move it to a paid version that has some additional benefits. Let me start with something else, a bad example. I have many apps that are trial, and then you can move to paid. And the benefit is that you remove the ads. So if you buy it in some of my own apps, you get rid of all the ads that I think might be distracting. Well, my conversion rate is probably 0.3%. 0.3% of all the users that download it actually go and buy it. Because there's not enough value in the trial conversion. So the examples here that I have are the two mechanisms that the top apps use to take a paid app from free or trial to paid. The first mechanism is time limited, and the second one is feature limited. So time limited is that the app allows you to do some things during a certain amount of time, and then at the end you have to buy it. So take, for example, Bejeweled. Bejeweled, you can play the level for 90 seconds. After 90 seconds, you can continue playing that level again and again, but you won't be able to progress more than 90 seconds until you move to the paid version. Game Day Tycoon, you have an avatar, a person working in the game, and you're able to play the first 5 years of this avatar inside the game, and then you have to move to the paid version. So that's enough time for the user to get to know the app, and if they like it, then they say, you know, it's worth, I like it, I'm going to be getting the paid version. I'm going to upgrade to the paid version. The other option is feature limited. In the case of Chimpact, it's different levels, so you're able to get more levels. In the case of Phototastic, it's different additional features to manage all the photos in the app. So this is how it looks in practice. Starting on your left-hand side, you see Chimpact. There's a little icon that says here, trial ended, and then they show you a screen very clearly what's the benefit you're going to get if you upgrade to the full paid version after the levels have ended. If you go to Bejeweled, they have a time-limited trial. At the end, it says your time is up, and then you click almost anything, and it gets you to a screen that clearly shows what you're going to get if you upgrade to the paid one. And in the case of the app Phototastic, you can see there the 4 different items. You get rid of advertising, but also you get more collaged designs, and you get to be able to save more images in HD. So you can see that these techniques work if you give the user enough value. And of course, if the app is targeting the right user. So we have both options. We have in-app purchase, and we have paid with trial. And I frequently get asked, okay, which one should I use? They sound very similar. Well, they are similar because they're able to get the user to move from a free version to paying for the app. But the capabilities are fairly different. In-app purchase is the most flexible system of all, and allows you even higher possibility of revenue because you can generate recurrent revenue through consumables. It allows you to show different options, different price points. It allows you to show actually offers. I've seen many games that actually, the first time you play, you get 5 different options. The second time you play, or the third one. If you haven't purchased anything, they actually show you another set of in-app purchase that is discounted. So again, you're able as a developer to control the offers much more efficiently, much more effectively. You control the UI. And your app is shown in the free category, that many users start their search first in the free category. So there's flexibility, but there's complexity. If you only have one option in your app, you have an app that has either free or premium, and you want to do get paid with only a couple lines of code, and you want the OS to manage everything, paid with trial is the right option. So our platform supports both, and it's up to you to decide which one is the best one for your app. So every time you see on the corner green, that means there's a brand new thing that we didn't have yesterday. So today we're announcing several changes to prices. Why is this important? Because 70% of the Windows Phone apps are priced at 99 cents and $1.29. And those price points were not available on Windows before. So now we're announcing we're making those price points available on Windows, which are the most popular price points for apps and for consumers to use. So that's one of the changes we're making. Also, we added new price points to Windows, more than $500. Why is that? To be able to have the exact same 2 price points, the same price tiers in all your apps for Windows, phone, PC, tablet. And also, at the same time, we adjusted, like every year we do, the exchange rates, so they more reflect accurate exchange rates converted from US dollars. So if you're a Windows developer and you were looking at those lower price points, strongly recommend you look at it, and if you need to change the price of your app, because that will typically drive a lot more downloads and purchases. The other thing that, actually, how many of you were in the keynote this morning? Okay, so I'm going to talk quickly through this, except adding a few more details you might not have seen before. So Universal Apps is something we announced today, and actually it's live in my phone that I have here and in the phones that have Windows Phone 8.1 in the demo booth. And this little icon, that is a little icon but has a big value. It tells all your users 3 things. My app is different because it's available in every device. If you like it, you'll be able to get it in the other device. Second is, if you get it once, if you buy it once, you'll get it at no additional cost on the other device. And third is that if you developers make some additional work in it, some application data can roam. What it means, if your application settings, for example, you set it on the phone, it immediately gets copied to all the other devices that have the same application that you own. So that's, the first two are, you don't have to do anything as a developer. The third one, you have to do some additional work as a developer. And then you get the roaming application data feature. So it's available on the devices. Buy it once, get it at no additional cost, and it will help drive more awareness of your app. So the work that you need to do as a developer is very simple. You just have to go to Dev Center, choose the app name that is available on the other platform, click Reserve Name, Associate, submit the app, and you're done. That's all you have to do. And on this Friday, Abhijat Kannada is going to have a session that is going to do a live demo. Abhijat, there, yeah. He's going to do a live demo of how this works behind scenes. How do you do it in Dev Center, and what are the implications, limitations, and benefits in more detail. I think it's worth going to that session. Now, we have not released this until Dev Center goes live with the changes later this month. But even before it has gone live, we already have apps that are going to be moving to this model during April. We have eBay, for example, Wordament, several apps from Citrix, typical Mahjong and Solitaire. We have Shazam, Dailymotion. All of these apps now will be showing this indicator. But not only that, also paid apps. Who here has used Halo? I've used Halo. Well, starting today, actually starting yesterday, Halo Spartan Assault uses this model. So if you buy it on the phone, you get it at no cost on your tablet or PC, or vice versa. So Halo Spartan Assault is one example of a paid app that has this benefit now. And again, you as a developer have the choice if you want to use this model or still continue to price them separately. It's your choice. But the benefit of getting additional users looking at your app is probably worth enough for many of those apps, like this ones, to have made the jump to this universal Windows apps. So we talked about in-app purchase, and we talked about paid applications. The third mechanism that you remember at the beginning, I talked about how to make revenues, advertising. So let's drill a little bit more about advertising. And this is the first one is just simple, making sure everybody's aware. Advertising is, in the basic sense, just showing an ad in the screen, and then just getting paid for users either seeing it or clicking on the ad. That's the simplest model. And you're seeing on the screen 4 apps from 4 different developers that are using this model fairly successfully. Now, the best practice we've seen after analyzing our apps that are making most revenue in our store, and also analyzing the apps that are making more revenue in the other stores, they use one technique, one major technique, which is rotation or waterfall or mediation. There are different words, but the key concept is you use multiple ad SDKs. So you might use the Microsoft SDK, but you should use a couple others. And then you call the first one. If the first one doesn't return any ad, you move to the second, you move to the third. I've done some testing that with 2 or 3 ad SDKs, you're able to get close to 100% fill rate. So there are enough ad SDKs in Windows and Windows Phone to be able to fill that, to fill out the waterfall. And Windows Phone, for example, I'm showing here 7 popular monetizable ad SDKs. So these are ad SDKs that give you money as you get more people downloading and using the app. There are also tool sets in CodePlex that do all the work of the rotation for you. So you don't have to code it all if you're so inclined. The third set of different SDKs is, I would call them promotion SDKs. So there are ad SDKs that you can also use in the waterfall to promote your app somewhere else. Some of the most popular ones is AdDuplex, who's actually on the floor. And Preapps is another one out there. So these are things you have to consider as you're building ads in your app. Or if you want to build it yourself, there's a little tiny link at the bottom where it actually points to a blog post that you'll be able to see in the recorded presentation that shows how to do the coding yourself, how to do the waterfall yourself. So this is the #1 best practice that we've seen for advertising. In addition to that best practice, there are other important best practices that all of these apps follow, all the ones that are actually generating significant revenue through advertising. They don't compromise the user experience. They don't start moving the advertising in different places where you click it by mistake. That just annoys users. You want users to keep on using the app as much as possible and enjoying it. They don't want to be annoyed with the app. So the design is integrated with the flow of the app. And of course, if you already added advertising to your Windows Phone app, you can add it to your Windows app with no additional work, because the API is the same. What you have to do is just rethink the UI because the sizes are bigger to take into consideration the larger screen sizes. And here, for example, is Farm Epic Story. You can see the ad at the bottom. It looks integrated with the design of the app. It doesn't interfere with the gameplay. So think about the waterfall. Think about the location and the UI. Now, if you've built your apps in iOS and Android, you probably know that banner ads are the least effective in terms of monetization. They're the ones that have the lowest eCPM. Much higher eCPM is, for example, rich media ads. Those rich media ads were not possible in the Microsoft Ad SDK until today. So today in the morning, the ad team released new ad SDKs for Windows and Windows Phone that allow the app to show rich media ads. And the only thing you have to do as a developer is update the ad SDKs. They're compatible with the versions you had before. Submit the app again, and it will have the capability of showing rich media ads. Now, those rich media ads are industry standard, so there's more volume, there's more availability of those ads in the market. And as more apps integrate this ad SDK, there's going to be a ramp up, and then there are going to be more rich media ads shown in the system. So this doesn't happen the moment you install the ad. It's going to take a few weeks and months to get there. And so there's a new ad SDK for Windows 8.1, for Windows Phone 8, and 2 ad SDKs for Windows 8.1, Silverlight and SAML. Now, the one for Silverlight, we're releasing at the end of the month, at the end of April. The one for SAML is available integrated in Visual Studio. So that's another recommendation for you. We built this new ad SDKs to help you increase your revenue. In addition to that, we've received a lot of feedback about PubCenter. PubCenter is the portal that all you developers use to manage your advertising with Microsoft for Windows Phone and PC and tablet. This morning also, we all released a new version of that PubCenter that has a much more streamlined and optimized UI. It has a dashboard look, so you can see your reports, you can see alerts about your revenue, you can get single sign-on as the same as other standard properties in Microsoft, and you have quick views which show you the revenue of each and every one of your ad units at a glance. So it's a much more efficient way of managing your advertising business if you're using the Microsoft Ad SDK. So those are some of the best practices for advertising. So let me recap. Okay, you already have what's the best practice for either in-app purchase, paid apps, or advertising. So you already submitted your app with the right tools. Now, it's very important to make sure your app gets to as many users as possible. So this is going to be obvious, but it's clearly not, because we're seeing many apps not doing this. As I mentioned before, if your app is paid, make sure it has trial, because that will, again, drive more downloads. You want as many people using it and downloading your app as possible. If your app is running on Windows, you should support both Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. There's enough install base of both that it's worth supporting both. And if you're also doing for Windows, you should make sure that the keyboard and mouse experience is very, very important. Just as a personal experience, the first app I built for Windows, it ran perfectly well in my Surface tablet. And then when people started using it on a PC, it flunked. It got really bad reviews because it wasn't designed for keyboard and mouse. But again, there's a substantial amount of people using both touch and non-touch devices. Your app should work beautifully in both. Or you should opt out of non-touch if it doesn't work with keyboard and mouse. Also very important is, in the case of Windows Phone, for example, that your app runs on low-memory devices. In the keynote this morning, there were 2 new phones that were announced. Again, in the same family of phones that have low memory, that have 512 megs or less. Well, last week I ran an analysis, and in February, 2/3 of all the app downloads were coming from low memory phones. 2/3. So if you have a game that has lots of graphics, beautiful sound, lots of videos, and it doesn't run on 512, you're missing in 2/3 of the users. Okay, so there are many techniques to solve that. You can either reduce the graphics, reduce the levels. Typically, actually, some of my apps have been through that process, so I actually compress the graphics, shorten the images, compress the sounds. And then there's ways of making that happen, and it's worth doing it. And also for Windows, there are new Windows devices that are going to be running in 1 gig. Your Windows app should run on 1 gig or less. Again, to be able to make sure that everybody uses your app. You spent a lot of time building it. Let's make sure everyone in the world, every single person can do it. Now, let's say you make an app that every phone can download. Will every user download it? Probably not. One of the reasons is languages. Here's some graphics that, I don't think we've shared all of those before. We analyzed in February what are the languages used by all the users downloading apps in Windows Phone and Windows. And the distribution is different. That's why it's important that you're aware of this. If you are targeting Windows Phone, if you are only supporting English, you're getting at least a quarter, 25% of the users happy with it because it's in their language. Well, but there's 75% that the English is not the primary language. And second one here in phone is Mandarin. And then Spanish, then it's Russian. So if you want to hit at least 75% of the users very satisfied, you should consider those languages. Now, Windows has a different distribution. English, Spanish, French, Mandarin, German. So as you consider how many users do you want your app to be downloaded in, think about these graphics. And there's another session also on Friday by Cameron that talks about not only localization, but globalization, and what do you need to do to make sure your app runs beautifully and natively for all the users that don't speak English, which is, as you can see, 75% of them in the case of Windows Phone. Now, as you're publishing to all markets, well, really there's no excuse not to publish in pretty much every market in the world. Windows Phone has 191 markets. Windows 8 supports 231, so it's a broad set of markets. And you can publish to all of them, no issues, except there are 5 markets that require some game ratings because the local government has that regulation. So when we follow those regulations, and that's Russia, Brazil, Taiwan, South Korea, and South Africa. And just take the 3, for example, Russia, Brazil, and Taiwan. We have a website. You can go in about 2 minutes. You can get a PDF certificate, either PEGI, ESRB, and you're able to publish to all those 3 countries. So pretty much you are able, through DevCenter, to cover all the world with just one submission. And as you're doing that, also, especially for Windows Phone, think about what price do you want your app to be. Clearly, you can choose one single price across the world, but also you can test and optimize your pricing for different markets. You can decide to price it higher in some markets, lower in some markets. You're able to do that. And why is publishing to all these markets important? Some of these markets, they don't have credit cards, they're small. Is it worth it? And the answer is of course, yes. And I'm going to take the example of Mexico. I'm from Mexico. Lots of people have cell phones there, but very few people have credit cards. So what we have done in Mexico is we have made deals with the 3 largest telcos in the country. And all of them not only offer Windows phones, but they also offer mobile operator billing. What I mentioned at the beginning, that you can buy directly from your mobile operator, and you get charged with a bill at the end of the month. And so again, last month, did an analysis and found that 83% of all the purchases of apps or in-app purchase in Mexico were done through MO billing. No one else, no other store has as many MO billing connections as we do. We have 57. I think Apple has 0. We have 57. So that's how we're, again, helping make sure your app that runs in low memory, that is localized, that has the right pricing, is available, and it's worth publishing in all these markets. So let me move to another topic. So now that you've published your app is out there, is getting reviews, And I think you might have seen this before. Some of the reviews might not be so positive. You want to respond to them. So we are announcing that we're implementing the number one feature that we're getting most requests from developers, which is respond to user reviews. You, as a developer, thank you, clap, I know. I wanted to do that too. And it's very simple. It's very simple. You just go to Dev Center, find the review, type the response, click, and the user gets an email directly from the store, not from the developer, with the response. So this is not made public, but again, this is the first version, this is the first release that we're doing starting next month, and we're going to be rolling out and learning from that release. And I think it's going to be very powerful, again, to engage all the users that you have worldwide. Not only have we made that connection, but we made it easier for you as a developer to log in and register in Dev Center. So, again, as I mentioned, many countries, credit card is not available, and I think that's a fact, and we need to adapt to it. So starting middle of April, when we release the update of Dev Center, PayPal will be available as a payment mechanism, and there's no longer the requirement for credit card for identity validation. So that's one of the changes that we received in India, in China, and Russia. They really needed that to be able to get more developers into the platform. They wanted to get in. The platform didn't allow them to do it. So that's one change. The other change we did is Windows and Windows Phone had slightly different app certification policies. They have slightly different legal agreements when you logged in. No more. When we released the new Dev Center middle of April, it's just one single set of policies, one developer agreement. So again, you probably have to just read it once and then forget about it, but now it's only one, not two, that are slightly different. Again, reducing the complexity for you to submit apps all over the world. Okay, you've done all that, you have your app, users are starting to use it, you're starting to respond to reviews. But okay, now you have the user there. How do you get the user to use your app more? How do you get your user to bring new users? So there are many techniques. There's a whole session by Jim Cox this Friday on driving user engagement, and you see lots of detail there. But I want to highlight four mechanisms. The simplest one, most common mechanism to get your users to use your app more, and also to get users to invite other users. So the first mechanism, let me actually show it here live on my phone. And this is an example from AE Mobile. It's a developer that has a portfolio of different apps, high-quality apps that users love. And then here, I'll show you how they cross-promote their app within other apps. Let me move. Give me a second. OK. So here's one of AE Mobile apps, and this CoinDozer game. And you can see here at the very bottom, even while I'm starting, they are actually promoting one of their other games within the game. And then even if I try to exit, they're promoting another one of their games. This is effective because the portfolio of apps that they have is similar between them. So if you are a user that likes it, very likely you'll like one of the other apps that they have. So they do very, very effective cross-promotion between their apps. The other technique that we've seen fairly effective and is the one used by Concur. Concur is probably the best example I've seen of an app that helps, within the app, has mechanism to get more users. So this is a game where you actually battle some other people real time, and you bomb their cities, they bomb yours, so you have to attack them, you have to defend yourself. And by recruiting new users, you get points, you get value that you can be used within the game to either attack or defend your city. And they made it really easy. You can recruit users using a text email, an email, a posting, even a QR code. Extremely easy. And every time you recruit someone, you get points that you can use within the game. So that's, again, that actually has allowed them to recruit users in other platforms too, in iOS and Android. So it's a great mechanism to help them grow if the users like the game. The third mechanism that is actually exemplified here by Jetpack Joyride is Lifetime. And you've heard about it, but this is an example. I took the screenshot a couple weeks ago from my Surface. I hadn't used Jetpack Joyride in a while. And I looked at my home screen, and here it is. I mean, it's a beautifully designed live tile that actually tells you what you need to do to get to the next level. So there's a sign there, use me, and you're almost there to the next level. So they actually have done a very beautiful job of a live tile. The last mechanism that most applications use is ask for user ratings. So there's a button, rate me. I strongly recommend you do that in the right way. You want to have more positive ratings. And this is actually a screenshot from my game I was playing a few days ago. I was playing it, and he kept asking me to rate it. And I was just like, oh, gosh. So I went to read the reviews, and lo and behold, I'm not the only one. And I'm going to read it if it's too small for the people behind. In a nice way, it says, uppercase, stop asking me to rate your game. For the love of God, once was enough, and so on. So you have to be careful how you ask for rating, when you ask for ratings. And I've seen this I mean, developers understand ratings is important. Just be careful, don't take it to the extreme. Again, there are many more techniques. I just focus on 4 basic ones that can be used very well and can be misused also. So not only your app can do some things to get more users and recruit more users, but we in the store have made our effort to help you here. So you probably have seen with Windows Phone 8.1 that we announced today, there are several improvements in the store that can help get the users to the right apps in faster and quicker. So one is there's more details in the app details page. So users can see the bar ratings. They can sort the reviews by most helpful or by date. So it gives them more information to make an informed choice. The second one is the personalization recommendations are much better than before. They don't show you apps you already have, and they also show collections that you might be interested in. And finally, as I've already mentioned, the Universal Windows icon, the Universal Windows App Indicator, tells the user this app has more value for you because it's available across all your devices. That's what the Windows Phone Store has done. But also the Windows Store, also was announced today, is doing some improvements to get more users to use your apps in Windows. The 3 main ones that I want to talk about today is the icon for the store. It's available in desktop mode. So more users will be able to get to the store even from the desktop. The second one is the apps that you get from the store, you will be able to pin it in the desktop. And the third one, once you install the apps, you're always reminded there's new apps that you have to play. Because not everybody was aware of where they were installed, where the icon was. And some of the things are minor, but I think they're going to have a lot of impact in getting more users downloading and installing and playing your apps and games in Windows. So in addition to what we've done in the store, also this morning, as part of the Pop Center release a new feature to promote your app. If you want to test with buying ads, you don't need to spend $10,000 buying ads, especially if your app is just starting. This feature within Pop Center is targeted for apps that are starting and have a budget up to $100 a month. And you can go and buy ads for your app. You just put the URL, put your credit card, and put how much you want to spend per month. Choose from one of the templates, click go, and that's it. You have ads now showing in every single app that has the Microsoft Ad SDK. That's all you have to do. I mean, if you want to run actually $300 a month, you can run 3 different campaigns at the same time. I mean, if you're going to spend $50,000 a month, this is not the right mechanism, but you're going to spend a few $100s a month. Very, very easy. This, again, we're launching it today. And because we're launching it today, it's only for US only for Windows Phone. And as we learn, we're going to be expanding it to the other countries. We're going to be expanding it to Windows. And there's a recorded session by Vijay on advertising that actually will go through all the detail of everything that we've done in the advertising improvements. Ad SDK, promote your app, and the new Pop Center. So I've taken you through some of the best practices, some of the lessons learned that we've gotten from the best apps in the store. So I want to close with just some things that I think you should be thinking when you leave this room. Just go through this presentation, think about how do you need to optimize your app, your monetization strategy to be more effective. If you're using Ad SDK, make sure you download the latest versions and consider the rotation strategy. Number 3, if you haven't registered for Dev Center, this is it. There's no more excuse. Price is very low. We have PayPal. We no longer require a credit card. All over the world, if you've been hold for that, this is the time to do it. Make sure you're published in every single market. Go back to Dev Center. Make sure you're in 191 markets for phone, 231 for Windows. You're everywhere. Takes a few minutes, and again, it's going to get you a lot more users. If you're using a paid app, make sure you add trial. If you're using in-app purchase, go to the best practices we talked about today. Think about the user retention features that I talked about. See if they can fit within your app strategy. Localize your app. Get it to right languages. And one very simple recommendation, just publish in both stores. You'll double the amount of users that you can target. You'll double the amount of revenue. So this presentation will be available recorded, and also there's additional presentations that complement what I've said today. There was one this morning by Massar that's going to be available recorded. There's an expert panel tomorrow. Tomorrow, this is very rare, but we are able to get together the leaders of the store from a business, from an engineering side, from the advertising side. All of them were going to be available tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. to answer your questions. So that's a good session to go. There's other ones. There's the demo from Abhijit on Friday, and there's the pre-recorded one from advertising at the bottom. So there's sessions to complement what I've talked about today. And I'm ready for questions. For you and for the others, if you wouldn't mind going to the microphones, but I'm going to repeat the question. The question is, are you able to see how many active users in PubCenter through the PubCenter portal? No. The answer is no. PubCenter just shows the number of ad views. There are some of the tools that I mentioned at the beginning are able to, if you included, for example, Flurry is one of them that allows you to track some of that information. But PubCenter is just for ads. They don't track active users. And I'll take a couple more questions.
When you're submitting to the Windows App Store, it requires a semantic cosine, I guess. I think it's Komodo or any other, even trusted authority is not working.
Correct.
Is that the same case on the Windows phone side too?
So the question is, on Windows, if you're a company, you require a certificate to submit app, for example, from Symantec. And the question is, can we use another one, and is it different in Windows Phone? The answer is no, it is the same one. Symantec is for both, where we have the same strategy, the same technology to vet companies, and that's the one you have to use for both. Yes?
In the Windows Phone Store, currently, you don't have the Windows Phone Store does not have unique app names. In other words, it's super-duper app. There can be 8 other super-duper apps with the same name. That's not the way it is in Windows 8. Is that going to change with the universal app?
Excellent question. Well, thank you for asking it. Yes, it's going to change. And so let me repeat. The question is, Windows requires a unique name. Windows Phone does not. Is that changing? So the short answer is yes, but let me give a little bit more longer answer. In Windows, since the beginning of the store, it has had a unique name. So every single app has a unique name. And Windows Phone, the strategy was different. So we have, I actually did some testing. We had about almost 200 tic-tac-toes in Windows Phone, called tic-tac-toe, the same name. Which is good or bad, but the downside of that is that it's very difficult to differentiate your app if there are 199 that have the same name. So starting with the universal apps, every new Windows Phone app requires a unique name. Existing apps can keep the same name. New apps require a new name. And if you use the same name from Windows and Windows Phone, then you'll be able to link it optionally. There's a longer discussion of actually seeing it live, and I recommend you go to Abhijit's session on Friday, where you're going to be able to see that in live. But yeah, starting new submissions for Windows Phone, unique name will be required. But you don't need to change any existing app.
I have one more.
Oh, there's not any more, so all yours.
Will there, and I don't know if you
Very good question. Repeating the question is, will there be in the store that the users see a section, an area, a list that shows the universal apps? Short answer is there's not going to be a list, but there are going to be collections, and there are going to be ways we promote those apps that are available on both platforms. What we're thinking is very soon we're going to have so many that really is not worth doing a list just for that. So at the beginning, the way we're going to be promoting it is through collections and promote apps that have that feature. But soon it's not going to be necessary. Any one more question? Okay, one more question, and then I'll be here to answer any more of your questions.
My question is that with the store on Windows 7, and how about PC apps?
Okay, so is the question, is the store running on Windows 7 and how does it integrate with Windows apps? Today, the store only runs on Windows 8 and higher, and Windows Phone 7 and higher. Though that's a great point that we need to consider for the future if we need to make that store available in other different operating systems. We don't have anything to announce today on that, but I'll make sure I bring that to the engineering leadership to think about that. Well, I'll close. Thank you very much, and I'll be here to answer any questions.